Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast.
A car is a car is a car.
Two stupidest things in sports. That a Heisman and or an NFL or any kind of MVP's got to be a quarterback, and the fact that they make 60-year-old men dress up in baseball uniforms to stand at the corner of the dugout.
Doc, just so you know, every time you mention Justin Jefferson, a little part of me dies inside.
It's week 14 in the NFL. Here we go.
That's how we start! Yeah, baby!
32 super fans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One pod Vader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. Hey, everybody. Pod Vader here. And I don't know why I said it's exciting, because quite honestly, where are all my super fans at? They didn't do power rankings? Well, some of them did. And they're not on this podcast. Well, Eagles James is here. I'd expect you to be here, though, every week, James. I mean, you're on every podcast. It's not just Thursdays. You're here with me on Tuesdays. We do the NFL Sound Off show. I'm sure if I had reached out to you to do a preview of the Patriots-Rams, you would have been right there.
Yeah, I would have been. And I would try to find a way to trash New England.
How dare you?
I mean, it's the right thing to do.
That laugh you hear in the background is our good friend Doc, who has also been with us on many a Thursday. Hello, Doc.
Hey, you become weekly therapy, man. It's good to be here. I just been doing interviews all day, and I go, you know what? I need an hour and a half break here outside of talking food, and you guys are cheaper than a psychologist. So
I'd also like to point out, hour and a half. Wow, you are really optimistic there. I like that.
Yeah, I know.
But I also think that Doc just wants to be here while we're doing the recording, so he doesn't have to download and listen later. But please do download at least, so we get the credit for the download.
Absolutely.
We need the credit.
Yeah. Everyone downloads to my phone.
Oh, there we go.
Sometimes I get to it while I'm exercising. Yep.
Speaking of credit, you can make lots of credits if you sign up at thrivefantasy.com. Download the app from the App Store, the Play Store. And what you'll do is you'll do your initial download, make sure it's $20 or more, and they will match that download, your first deposit of $20 or more, up to $50. And it's really easy to play. Essentially, fantasy seasons might be done for some of you people that are in redraft leagues. Obviously, there's still daily fantasy, but that's what Thrive Fantasy is all about. They're inviting you to hashtag prop up this season. All you have to do is choose 10 out of the 20 player prop options to build your lineup. Each prop has a fantasy point total associated with the over or under based on its likelihood to occur. The more points a selection is worth, the riskier it is, and you rack up the most points to win a share of the prize pool. And they have lots of different guarantees each and every week. So that is thrivefantasy.com, or download the Thrive Fantasy app from the App Store or the Play Store. Use promo code NEXTFANUP. That's important because that is the way that they will match your first deposit of $20 or more up to $50. And who couldn't use an extra, 100% bonus on anything these days, right? Put $20 in, get another $20, and now I got $40 to play with. I like that deal. That sounds like a good deal for me.
Beauty.
Awesome. Just stay away from Vegas, Jay.
ThriveFantasy.com. Yeah. We're getting to that point. There are no more bye weeks. So we have a full slate of games to get through, which is why I made the comment about an hour and a half as being rather optimistic, because it takes us quite a few minutes to get through each and every game. But listen, that is why we also have time codes in our show notes, so you can jump from the 1:00 games to the 4:00 games to Sunday Night Football to Monday Night Football. Those timestamps are right in our show notes on Spotify. If you listen on that particular app, you actually can click on the timestamp and it'll bring you right to that point in our podcast. You can also do that on Spreaker, which is our host. And usually what you'll see that I post in social media, there's actual little chapter markers that you can skip to. So we try and make that as easy as you can because we know it's a lot to consume, but that's also why it's a podcast. And it's also why you have the pause button. You hit the pause button, put it down, come back to it a little bit later, listen to a little bit more. And that's also why we record these on Thursday and not on like Sunday, because we give you time to pay attention and listen to everything that we have to say. No bye weeks. We do have clinching scenarios and eliminated teams. Now, I'm not going to go through each and every scenario because quite honestly, it's boring and I don't have a real good way of doing it in a fun manner at the very least. But
there is one easy scenario.
Well, there are two teams that have already clinched, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs and the New Orleans Saints. They have both clinched their playoff spot. There are scenarios for the Bills, Steelers, and Packers this week, and the Bills and Steelers happen to play each other. That should be a good one. There are also teams that have been eliminated. That is the Jets, Jaguars, Bengals, and Chargers. Those teams are out of it from this point forward. They have no shot at the playoffs, so they're all playing for that number one draft choice. Jets obviously have first dibs. The Jaguars are right behind them.
Well, the Chiefs can also clinch the division this week.
The Chiefs should have extra motivation. Is that what you just said?
Well, they can clinch the division with a win or a Raiders loss.
Oh, well, that should be easy on both.
Right. That's
sides
probably
of
the easiest scenario.
There's no one left in our eliminator. There are no more perfect picks. Niner Gary unfortunately took the Seahawks last week. And so no one will be perfect from the next fan up family, at least not publicly.
Hold on. First of all, Gary, that wasn't a bad call. Seattle's just horrible.
Something's going on in Seattle, that is for sure. The Pigskin Pick'em, myself, along with three others, and the Power Rankings all got 11 correct straight up. Although you won't notice that on ESPN.com because I forgot to put the Power Rankings picks in last week. So I had to go back and manually check to see exactly what the Power Rankings did. I only got 8 correct versus the spread. That's still better. That's still better than my average 5 against Vegas this year. 50%. I'll take it. I broke even. Anyway, quite a few games of closely ranked teams this week. So I suspect it's going to be a real difficult one, both straight up and versus the spread. Also, I will try and make sure that I give you the correct power ranking pick, because as you know, we do like to award home field advantage, even though we've mentioned a number of times this season there really isn't a home field advantage this year. But we still include that in how the power rankings decide who will be the winner of that particular game. That's the business side of things. I have no useless stats for you, at least off the top. So are you guys ready to jump into the games?
Get at her.
Yeah, let's do it.
Get at her.
I will quickly mention that there is a lovely preview of the Thursday night game between the New England Patriots and the Los Angeles Rams, done by yours truly. I think I was very honest and fair in my assessment of both teams. I did pick the Patriots, but I told you exactly how and why the Patriots can end up winning that game. But I also mentioned that I would not be surprised if the Patriots lose, because honestly, from week to week, I don't know which Patriots team is going to show up.
Nobody does.
Certainly did not expect a 45-0 blowout last week. That's
the
sure.
team from last week, they're not showing up tonight.
Why do you say that?
Come on, like you said, week-to-week consistency. Where has it been this year?
It hasn't. That is for sure.
Well, you say the same thing with the Rams. I mean,
exactly.
They could be the 5th best team in the NFL. They could be the 15th best team in the NFL.
Well, in our power rankings, the Rams are 7th and the Patriots are 16th. And honestly, I think the Patriots should just remain locked in at 16 for the rest of the year. That is their spot. They are
in favor.
They are team 16. Vegas has the Rams favored by 5. Even if you think the Rams are going to win, I still think it's going to be a close game. The Patriots haven't really been manhandled at all by any team. Chiefs fans might disagree. But really, even that game was pretty close up until the fourth quarter. Patriots played the Chiefs pretty well. And I think that was their worst loss points-wise. Their worst loss was clearly against the Texans. They had no business losing that game. In any case, that's Thursday Night Football. Go listen to that podcast. It's available wherever great podcasts are heard. Sunday, 1:00 games. We will start with the Houston Texans at the Chicago Bears. The Texans are 21st in the power rankings. The Bears have fallen to 22nd. Vegas favors the Texans by 21. The power rankings are going to take the Bears in this game, despite them being lower ranked, because they get 2 points for home field advantage, which makes them actually the lower rated team. James, this is the first of how many locks this week for the Houston Texans?
I can't remember how many locks I put down. It's at least 2, because we already know which one team I'm locking in later on. But, yeah, look, the Bears are done. I don't understand what's going on. They had a winnable game last week against Detroit and crapped it away in the last 3 minutes of the game. Actually, in a span of 1 minute and 9 seconds, they crapped that game away. And that's not hyperbole. That's literal. 1 minute and 9 seconds, they went from being up 30-20 to being down 34-30. And at this point in the season, they're pretty much like the Jets. They're trying to find ways to lose games. They thought, Trubisky would come back and he'd learn. And, yeah, the offense does look a lot better now with him under the center than it did at the beginning of the season. But there are too many breakdowns late in games, whether they have the lead or they're trying to come back. And I can't trust this team. On the flip side, the Houston Texans had a heartbreaker. I mean, how often does the center snap the ball right at Deshaun Watson's feet? Had that not happened towards the end of the game, Texans may win that 27-24 instead of losing 24-20. So I think the Texans are pretty much doing all the right things, heading in the right direction at this point. Romeo Cornell, I'm not going to say he has his team turned around, but they're definitely playing better than they were under Bill O'Brien. And I just like the Texans better than
that was the question I was going to pose to you, Doc. I don't know how much of the Texans you've watched. But,
absolutely.
Have the Texans shown that much more life with Romeo Cornell?
No, just I think Deshaun, he's in the MVP race. He's just doing stuff. He's Houdini. He lost so many of those boneheads, using the PDs, it's like suspensions up the wazoo. He's got no weapons left. His line is not performing all the time. He's just doing things magically. I think he's performing the way he is. He wants a top offensive mind coach to come to that team. He is the only bright spot on the Texans right now. And I take my hat off to him. He's got nothing, and he's just pulling crap out of his rear end. And that's what they're worth. That's why they're worth watching. Chicago, on the other hand, probably winless the rest of the year. Again, I've given you my parallel. Same menu, 2 different quarterbacks. You don't know what they are. They're nothing. They're inept offensively. What they did against the Lions, I watched some of the game. I'm surprised they were in the game, but I don't know what the Lions are. I don't know what the Bears are. They're insignificant. I think right now the only spot to watch here is Deshaun Watson, and he alone can win that football game.
And back to you, my good friend James. Where's Khalil Mack? He seems to have disappeared as well.
Well, there's a guy out there wearing a Bears jersey that says Mack on the back, number 52. So somebody's in his jersey out there on the field, but he's not having much of an impact. I'm not going to say other teams have neutralized him, but they've done a good job of keeping him in check. And he had no impact last week.
The only thing I have here for you, positive for the Bears, is Roquan Smith is the first player since Luke Kuechly with 100-plus tackles and 15-plus tackles for loss in a single season. Kuechly in 2018 had 110 and 15 or is that Roquan Smith? I'm sorry, I was reading that wrong. That's Roquan's stats so far this season. So, hey, this just in, there's still 3 weeks left. He can make those numbers even larger. Texans have won the past 4. They're actually undefeated against the Bears in their lifetime.
Nice.
I'm going to agree with you guys. I'm going to go here with the Houston Texans. I don't necessarily feel strongly about it, but it is the Bears. So I don't like going against the power rankings. I'm already 2 for against them. Let's see about this next game. I have a feeling I'm going against the. Yep. Oh, yes. Injury reports. Yes.
Khalil Mack and Allen Robinson show up on the injury report as questionable with both shoulder and knee, respectively. Wide receiver Darrell Mooney also missed Wednesday's practice due to personal reasons. For the Houston Texans, they place linebacker Brennan Scarlett on injury reserve with his forearm injury. Tight end Farrell Brown, running back CJ Procise, and wide receivers Kiki Qt and Brandon Cooks also show up as questionable. Brown has a concussion. Procise has an illness, not COVID-related. QT, knee injury, and Brandon Cooks, foot and neck.
I thought you were going to drop the Khalil Mack is missing his football acumen was on the injury report. I thought that's
acumen, shoulder, he didn't practice Wednesday.
Close enough. The Dallas Cowboys are at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cowboys are now 29th in the power rankings. The Bengals are 30th. While Vegas favors the Cowboys by 3.5, the power rankings are taking the Bengals once again because home field advantage actually will make them the lower rated team. This is another game between 2 teams that really no one's going to care that much about. The Bengals are out of it. They don't have Joe Burrow starting. And the Cowboys, just a waste of talent this season is probably the best way to put it. So with a lost season for the Cowboys and the Bengals being the Bengals, I don't know which way to go with this. And you guys are split on it too. Doc, you're going with the Cowboys.
Well, I'll put it this way. I could eat the most succulent piece of brisket, a whole brisket right in front of me with a bunch of naked redheads. But I'm right in front of the TV. I still wouldn't watch this game. I'm telling you. Listen, if Burrow was playing, you could make the case because Cincinnati, surprisingly, with that least amount of talent, has been competitive. They have been. They've got over a 50% chance of a top 3 pick. I think it stays the same. I just think that Dalton going back to the team that shunned him, there's something there. He'll put up 300-plus yards. There's enough weapons there, and that's just enough to get it done. Other than that, don't care.
You sold me. Revenge game. That was all you needed to say. Revenge game for Andy Dalton. I'm there. James, you're going with the Bengals.
Yeah, and I struggle with this one, and I may switch it again come Sunday. Look, I get the revenge thing, but after watching what's left of the Dallas Cowboys, I can't even say play on Tuesday night. They were on the field, but, I mean, you take away Lamar Jackson, the running backs of the Ravens still ran for 200 yards against the Dallas Cowboys. There was no need to throw the ball for Baltimore. And I'm not saying the Bengals have that dearth of talent, but if they can just get 120 combined from their backfield against the Cowboys, I can see them winning this game. Look, ugly, close, sure. Dalton notwithstanding, because the line can't protect him. I mean, they finally put who am I blanking on? Zach Martin has finally been placed on injured reserve a couple of days ago. So, I mean, every big name on this offensive line is either hurt or retired. So this offensive line from a couple of years ago that everyone's like, oh, my gosh, this is a unit that's going to be around for 5 years, and Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. Okay, well, I understand Dak Prescott out for the year. I can't explain Ezekiel Elliott's performance this season at all. It is mind-boggling. This kid has fumbled more times this year alone, and the season's not over yet, than the previous years of his career combined. And that is mind-boggling to me. He should be the one reliable piece on the offensive side of the ball that they should be able to lean on, but you also have an idiot savant, and I use savant sarcastically, in the head coach who doesn't even run the ball that much. This game was close against Baltimore early on, and for whatever reason, there were 5 straight pass plays by Andy Dalton. This line can't protect him that way. I give the Bengals more than a strong enough chance to win this game. I mean, again, like you said, they have nothing to play for. Why not go out there and let it all hang out? And if it wasn't for Burrow's injury, I'd lock the Bengals.
Hey, Pod, I'll tell you, Pod, that some analysts think that Mike McCarthy has buried himself as a football coach. You remember a couple years ago we were talking about how great Leighton Vander Esch was going to be, how good that linebacking core was going to be. We stopped talking about the offensive line. Started talking about, oh my God, we're talking about 2 potential Hall of Fame linebackers. You know what you were getting against Lamar Jackson. The gap integrity was ridiculously bad. They were trying to lose. And I blame that on McCarthy. And by the way, we're talking too much about a game that nobody cares, even if there are redheads in front of the TV and brisket in front of my schnapps.
I'll just add.
Doc, but Mike Nolan's the defensive coordinator, and he never cleaned that up. And he's a former head coach.
Yeah.
I'll just add, you brought up Ezekiel Elliott only averaging 3.9 yards per carry this year.
Money. He's got the money. Don't need anything. Yeah.
So that's not good. And then the only other thing is you sort of brought it up is the offensive line. Are the Cowboys an offensive line away from being competitive once again? Because to me, on paper, you should have a running back and you should have wide receivers. And now it's you get Dak Prescott back next year if you resign Dak Prescott. And
I don't know how they can. I don't know how they can. Hey, you think about it.
They have to find a way.
They have to find a way. They have so many needs now, right? And what percent? I forget the number. I don't know what the number, if they sign him, what percentage of the roster is that going to be? It's like they got so many needs. I think it's more than just an O-line, but if they get a top 5 pick, they can start on their way. But I just don't know. Jerry Jones is going to be in a pickle. And fine by me.
Right. And here's the thing, Doc. You don't sign Dak Prescott. You're going to rely on Andy Dalton and trying to rebuild this line, because even when they were healthy-ish initially, this offensive line, Dalton still performed horribly, in his first couple of starts. It wasn't, we judged this at the beginning of the year as probably the biggest and best move of the offseason, just in case Prescott gets hurt. We praised him as being the best backup in the league. Like, if he had to step in and start for Dak for any reason, the Cowboys should be okay. They're not okay, even when the line was healthy. And to your question specifically, even if they have a healthy offensive line and everything else was status quo and the offense is still playing well, they'd be in shootouts every week because the defense can't stop a runny nose. And again, there's talent on this defense. Now, granted, after week 3 or 4, they cut Dontari Poe and a defensive back to shake things up and send a message to the team that, your name recognition won't get things done. And Vander Esch and Smith, supposedly 2 of the best linebackers in the league, but Doc said earlier, gap integrity. They're not getting there on any run play for any opposition at all this season. They're either lost, don't know where to go, or just completely out of position. And so bad. Mike Nolan has been – look, I'm pretty sure Dallas media is ripping Mike Nolan a new one. But, again, McCarthy's a coach, and he doesn't look like he's going to do anything differently as far as personnel in the offseason should he keep this job.
What's the injury report?
Ezekiel Elliott, calf strain. He was limited Wednesday. Luke Gifford, the linebacker, he is out. And safety Donovan Wilson has that inner thigh injury going on. Cameron Fleming, the tackle, also shows up as questionable. For the Bengals, tackle Jonah Williams was placed on injury reserve with a knee injury. Wide receiver T. Higgins has a hamstring injury. And safety Brandon Wilson is questionable for Sunday as well. Joe Mixon was finally placed on injury reserve with a foot injury.
All right, 3 straight games I've gone against the power rankings. This is not shaping up to give me a lot of confidence. Let's see how this one goes, and then we'll get a recipe from Doc. Denver Broncos are at the Carolina Panthers. Broncos are 26th in the power rankings. The Panthers are 23rd. Vegas likes Carolina by 3.5. And while Doc and James are both taking the Panthers, my first question is, what is the COVID list like for this one? Because I know
Oh my gosh,
they came off a bye and they put a bunch of starters on the COVID list on Monday. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't play Sunday, but doesn't inspire a lot of confidence.
Well, here are the names who are on that COVID list because, like you said, it came out the bye, an explosion on the COVID list, 8 names. Some of those names are players right now who are currently going to be out. Punter Michael Parlady, wide receiver DJ Moore, linebacker Shaq Thompson, defensive tackle Derek Brown, defensive tackle Zach Kerr, wide receiver Curtis Samuel, and defensive end Yuder Gross-Matos were all placed on the COVID list.
Now, have any of them been ruled out already for Sunday?
Yes.
Or
they are.
Who is? Those are all out? They're not playing Sunday?
Those players are all listed as out.
Ooh, that means they have symptoms and they've tested positive.
Well, as of today, PFT said that some of the 8, by all indications, may be taken off the list by Sunday. But again, it looks like the NFL changed their rules this week with that whole Des Bryant thing. So who knows, right?
Yeah, and that was a cluster fluff.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, of these 8 players, from what I understand, these 8 players who, were ruled out at this time, 3 of them had positive tests, and the remainder were deemed close contact through the contact tracing protocols that they did. So that's why the list is so big, that there were only, as of this point, they only confirmed that there are 3 positive tests, and the rest of them are just close contact through tracing.
And of course, we're not going to know who those 3 are because the 3 positives are definitely out for Sunday.
Right. So again, some of these players, because of protocols, they could come off by Saturday or maybe even Sunday morning, but we won't know till game time.
All right. So knowing that and knowing that the players that are on that list, you guys are still feeling rather comfortable with Carolina, or you're not feeling as comfortable as you might have thought?
I think Teddy Bridgewater. Listen, this is a team on any given week. It's not going to be a long rebuild the way they're playing at all. I mean, there's great players that Derek Brown, Jeremy Chin. I mean, these guys, this is a potential playoff team next year. So they got enough weapons. I know they're all-world MVP back. They've been playing well without them.
Playoff team. That's a tough
next year. Next year. Next year. I think that Matt Rule's got this thing going on the tracks, and I just think Teddy, if he's healthy, is the difference. That's it. And this is one of those games where you could put naked brunettes in front of the TV and pulled pork. I'm not going to.
And look, not to jump too much on Doc's bandwagon here with the Panthers, but I mean he's right. Chin, I think, is a bona fide, I'm not going to say lock, but definitely top 3 for defensive rookie of the year.
Yep.
My only concern though, and this was a stat I saw earlier today, in the 3 games Christian McCaffrey has played this year, the Panthers have lost. So that does give me a
weird,
concern. Right. Yeah, he is healthy enough to play on Sunday with that shoulder injury, so he should be available. Dante Jackson has a toe injury, and Marquise Haynes is listed as questionable as well. So, yeah, I still think, look, we've said all year, and Doc and I have pretty much been in line, Bridgewater is basically he's a straw that stirs the drink. Christian McCaffrey helps, but, I mean, this is all on Bridgewater.
James, I think Christian McCaffrey can now start his own support group with Drew Brees. Right? I think he's got to be getting a complex, for God's sakes,
Absolutely. I mean, they all their wins have been without him. I mean, they're playing well. Bridgewater, look, if anybody had doubts about Bridgewater going into this year, I know it's a losing record. Watch the games.
Yeah.
A lot of their losses aren't even on him. Again, we said this is a young, very, very young defense. I mean, between youth and depth, yeah, they're going to be tested on Sunday. But, I mean, almost every single one of their starters, talking about 4 years or less in the league.
Just to highlight some of the things that you said there, Jeremy Chin, 13 tackles, forced fumble, and two forced fumble returns for touchdowns in Week 12. He was the third player in NFL history to do that. Fred Evans and Al Nesser. I'm sure you guys know who those dudes are.
They never did it on back-to-back plays.
The only other two. Chin also leads all rookies with 86 tackles. I know Neil's guy, Brian Burns, has 3 sacks in his past 4, so he's starting to come into form. So I'm feeling what you guys are saying, and yeah, there's nothing going on the Broncos that makes me think that they can come in and control this game. So
yeah, they also put 2 players on injury reserve this week. Derek Tuska, the linebacker, Asang Basie, the corner. Jerry Jeudy is also nursing an ankle injury.
That's a shame. All right, so we're all in step here with the Panthers. We don't need to talk too much more about that. Doc, What delicious recipe do you have for us this week?
Well, after what I watched with Josh Allen, my ex-wife, the Buffalo Bills, I thought I'd do another Buffalo recipe. So it may be against the grain of my philosophy of excess in moderation on a weekly basis for football weekends. I came up with buffalo cauliflower bites.
Ooh.
They are not deep fried. Now I know one of our co-hosts was talking about buffalo and cauliflower, I think. So I did this for Super Bowl. Really good. It's seasoned flour with some milk. But what I'm giving you with this, it is baked in the oven or on the grill. I'm giving you an authentic buffalo sauce directly from the Anchor Bar in Buffalo, New York. An authentic buffalo sauce, and it's not deep fried for us fat guys. So it's done in an oven or on a grill, 450, and then get some nice sauce to dip that in, maybe blue cheese or ranch. But fantastic stuff, man. You just little cauliflower florets that feel like they're deep fried, and you got that seasoned buffalo sauce. Beautiful. So buffalo cauliflower is going to be your next Fan Up recipe of the week.
Awesome sauce.
That
delicious. You should try it. It's really, really good, man.
You know what? That sounds like a way that you'll get me to eat a vegetable.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
That's bad, Jay. I'm going to need you to do better.
So I did the college football podcast or radio show this week, and we did that, and I just said it's half healthy so you can feel half good. At least I got some veggies in the diet, you know?
Perfect. All right. Yeah. That sounds like a plan. Next game is the Tennessee Titans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Titans dropped to 8th in the power rankings. The Jaguars are 31st. The Titans favored by 7.5 in this particular game. Last week, James Robinson totaled 108 scrimmage yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Robinson now has 7 games with at least 100 scrimmage yards this season, which is tied with Clark Gaines, 7 games in 1976 for the most such games by an undrafted rookie in the common draft era. Robinson has 1,278 scrimmage yards this season, which is tied with Philip Lindsay, who did it in 2018 for the second most scrimmage yards by an undrafted rookie in the common draft era. Only Dominic Rhodes, who has 1,328, had more. So let's see here. With 4 weeks to go, James Robinson needs less than 100. I think James Robinson's going to do it. Might even do it this week. Good for him. However, he's facing the Titans, who have a running back named Derrick Henry, who leads the NFL with 1,317 rushing yards, has recorded at least 100 rushing yards in 8 consecutive road games, which is tied with Chris Johnson, who did that back in 2009, 2010 for the second longest such streak in NFL history. Only Pro Football Hall of Famer Barry Sanders has a longer streak. He did it for 10 games between 96 and 97. So let's see, with 4 games left, I think Derrick Henry can break Barry Sanders' record. And
Before we get into analysis, James Robinson gets any consideration for Rookie of the Year, or is this just a slam dunk on Justin Herbert now?
I think it's an open book.
I think he'll get consideration, but I do think Herbert is most likely your Rookie of the Year.
I'm just trying to find a way that it doesn't go to a quarterback again. Because
that'd be nice, eh? Wouldn't that be nice?
It's like we find a reason. It's like, oh, he's a quarterback and he's playing well, but the team's not doing well. He gets Rookie of the Year. Like,
yeah. There's two anomalies in sports, and you saw the NBA that they loosened the tie on wardrobe for NBA coaches. Two stupidest things in sports that a Heisman and or an NFL or any kind of MVP's got to be a quarterback, and the fact that they make 60-year-old men dress up in baseball uniforms to stand at the corner of the dugout. It's absolutely insane. It doesn't have to be a quarterback. Do we know is flour the number one ingredient for baking? Yes, but without baking powder and butter and everything. Listen, there's got to be another way to think about this, but you're right. It's like, I want him to get the nod. Listen, I think, you know how much of a Hebert fan I am, but anyways, yeah, just saying, not saying, just saying, but I think that's insanity that it's got to be a quarterback. So let's move on.
By the way, I gave you all those stats because this is my lock of the week with the Tennessee Titans, and we're all taking the Titans.
I'd be careful. Yeah. I'll be careful, Pod. I'll tell you, man, that Titans team is an enigma right now. They barely have that offensive line in the top half of the league right now. There are tremendous concerns on the right side with Nate Davis and the Dennis Kelly. They're not the same, and they cannot rush the quarterback. Remember, James, we were talking about this. Well, at least get They're not even getting that. So-and-so. It doesn't matter. Nobody. They can't. They're one of the worst rushing teams in the last 5 years to get to the quarterback. And that's going to be a problem in the playoffs. It's not going to be the same if they have to play the Chiefs. Tremendous blemishes that were thrown. Well, look what Cleveland did against them. Ridiculous. So right now the Titans had 0 sacks. They gave up, 10 of 17 or 10 of 16 against the Browns on third down. They're not the same team. But again, they're good enough with that all-world running back and a decent quarterback and good wideouts, but they're not the same team. And Jacksonville has been in every game, just about.
Yeah.
Well, to that point,
their one win.
To that point, I was going to give you the one nod to sort of highlight your warning, because these two teams played back in September, and the Titans came away with a 33-30 victory. However, the quarterback at that time was Gardner Minshew, not Mike Glennon, who is just terrible. And Doug Marrone clearly does not want to win another game because he's done. The only reason why he's there is to continue to lose games for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Vrabel 4-1 versus the Jaguars. Doug Marrone 2-6. The Jaguars have a negative point differential. They have a negative takeaway giveaway differential. It's just, there's nothing positive here for the Jacksonville Jaguars other than
James Robinson.
Other than if the Jets win, the Jaguars will have the number 1 pick in the draft. And James Robinson. You're right.
James Robinson. Rookie of the Year, James Robinson.
James Robinson.
And to Doc's point, as far as the defense, Jadeveon Clowney, who they acquired, was placed on injured reserve because he had season-ending surgery to repair a meniscus.
So that's an upgrade.
Right. Cornerback Kareem Orr was placed on injured reserve with his inner thigh issue going on there. And wide receiver Adam Humphries was placed on injured reserve related to a concussion he suffered earlier this season. Other Titans showing up on the injury report include receiver A.J. Brown, who didn't practice because of an ankle injury, cornerback Adoree Jackson, limited because of a knee injury, and tight end Jonnu Smith, also nursing a knee injury. And as Doc mentioned, that offensive line, Saffold, Kelly, Jones, guard, center, tackle, all questionable for this week. Should play, but some, again, reasonable concerns there, Doc. For Jacksonville, Tyler Eifert, Laviska Shenault, James Robinson, shoulder, thumb, and knee, respectively, all show up on the injury report.
Kansas City Chiefs are at the Miami Dolphins. The Chiefs regained the number 1 position in the power rankings, though they never really lost it to the undefeated Steelers, who are no longer undefeated. The Miami Dolphins fell from 12 to 13. Here's some respect for the Dolphins. Vegas only favors the Chiefs by 7. How about that? With no interceptions on Sunday against the Chiefs, Tua Tagovailoa will become the first quarterback in the Super Bowl era to record 0 interceptions in each of his first 6 career starts. Figures I can say Tua Tagovailoa, but can't say 6 career starts. What's wrong with my vocabulary? We are all taking the Chiefs, but I think Vegas only giving up 7 for the Chiefs. That's some respect there for the Miami Dolphins and what they're doing on defense.
Yeah, and that's going to be the key to this game, the Dolphins' defense. Head coach was a former DC for your Patriots, Pod. I'm pretty sure that he saw some things that, his mentor did early this season against mobile quarterbacks. I'd say keeping Mahomes in a pocket would be a big deal as far as winning this game, but it doesn't matter if Mahomes is in the pocket or out of the pocket. He can make every throw from every angle. Pressure is going to be key, and I'd be interested to see how he gets that pressure on Mahomes while still maintaining coverage downfield, because we've already seen every single week this season Tyreek Hill behind the secondary. And, I don't know what communication or what scheme goes into those defensive backs this week, but if he ends up behind them with the ball in his hands for any reason, to understand that the 4 or 5 guys there who wear numbers 20 through 40 will all be staring at each other like, I thought that was your guy.
Well, I'll say this about that. Our chief superfan, Nick, has mentioned this numerous times about what confuses Patrick Mahomes the most. And if there's any team that has embraced the amoeba defense the most, it is the Miami Dolphins and Brian Flores. So I think the Dolphins will be able to do enough to sort of keep him in check. And you mentioned he's going to watch that tape of the Patriots versus the Chiefs from earlier this season, and he's going to get some key takeaways from that game on how he can do some things with his personnel that maybe the Patriots weren't able to do against the Chiefs in their game against them. I think the Dolphins are going to put up a good fight here. I just don't think they have enough offensively to keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's really what their problem is going to be.
True that. You gotta that whole amoeba thing, whether it's half and half, zone one side, man on the other, disguise coverages, and morph that with, or put a little bit of a pass rush on. Gap integrity, hate to use that term, but the fact is that stay in your lane, get your organic pressure on him. Just, it's got to be a secret sauce. But if he gets going, I don't know anything that can stop Patrick Mahomes right now. That might be it, but he's going to have to make a couple errors. There's going to have to be a couple of boo-boos to stay in this game. I think Miami's a quality defense. It's a top 12, top 10 defense, but I just think it's all for naught. It's like, my Saints right now are scaring me to death with their DVO rankings. They are blowing away Pittsburgh and KC in every metric by 20 points, and they're peaking to I don't think they could beat the Chiefs right now. You'd have to outscore them. It'd have to be Drew Brees on his best day. I don't know anybody that can beat Patrick Mahomes right now. Let's just let the season play out, see if he's still got the same weapons, the same infrastructure. But right now, maybe they can stay in this game for 3 quarters, the Dolphins, but that's it. So
far as who can stop Patrick Mahomes. It's Andy Reid, and
Yeah.
and in much the same way back in the '80s, people say Dean Smith was the only person who could stop Michael Jordan. Andy Reid is the only person who can stop Patrick Mahomes, because I'm noticing a subtle, disparaging little trend here. They're running the ball less and less over the last couple of weeks. And I don't like it. Look, Bill Parcells, and I love using this quote, even if you only get 2 yards of rush, you still have to run the ball to make the defense respect it. And I still believe that to this day. He said this like 30-plus years ago. I still hold to that. You can't drop back and pass 40-plus times a game on every single down and expect different results. One, you're going to get your quarterback killed at some point. Your lines are going to break down because they're constantly pass protecting instead of leaning on the defensive line and pushing them around. They become, the recipients instead of the bullies of pressure. And then you're burning out your wide receivers. I'm pretty sure the receivers would love to have pass plays on every down, but geez, I mean,
if there was any quarterback, James, that could rub up against that.
True.
But let's go back 30 years. I don't know who said it. You got to be able to run the ball. Why? Only 3 things can happen when you pass, and 2 of them are bad. Even with Mahomes, the first 3 quarters of that Super Bowl, big blemish. What did they do? Right? But 4 quarters of that onslaught of just, oh my God. Like, has there been any quarterback in history? I'll ask both of you guys this. Let's say, well, you're giving him 50 seconds. Oh, it's like Drew Brees, the fourth quarter comebacks, or Aaron Rodgers. You're giving him 50 seconds or you're giving him 40 seconds and 1 timeout. Oh, that's enough. Or you're giving him 12 and a half seconds and no timeout. That's enough. It's like we're handicapping the greatness. It's like you knew against the Raiders, or you knew against whatever. I can't remember what game it was this year. There was enough time. 4 passes. He scores. It's done. And we're not shocked. We're not shocked anymore. It's a new standard with Patrick Mahomes. A new standard.
Yeah, I just don't want us to get used to it and be like, oh, this is the norm. It's supposed to happen all the time. And then when it finally doesn't happen, we're trashing him for playing bad when he's playing just as well as any other quarterback still.
Well, I will say this about that. He's set the bar for himself. So, I mean, He's done this now for 3 straight seasons. So if he does play off of this pace, then absolutely we can trash him. Unless, of course, he's still the best quarterback in the NFL. 31 touchdowns. 2 interceptions so far this season. That's ridiculous. 5 consecutive games with 315 plus passing yards. That's tied for the 3rd longest streak in NFL history. Aims for his 8th in a row with a 95 plus rating. His current rating is 113.8. Has 9 touchdowns, no interceptions in 3 games versus the AFC East this season. So he likes playing the AFC East. I mean, listen, he leads the NFL with 3,815 passing yards. I've been trying to pound the Russell Wilson still going to get a first place vote thing. That's out the window at this point. I think it's clearly it's Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers. It'll depend on the next 4 weeks. Yep.
Yeah. Right. Injury report for this game. Damian Wilson, the linebacker, Yasser Durant, the tackle, both show up as questionable. Tyreek Hill, he did not practice on Wednesday due to a non-COVID related illness.
I don't understand how you get those, but sure.
Neither do I. As far as the Dolphins go, Jamal Perry, the cornerback, he is out. He was placed on the reserve COVID list yesterday. Jakeem Grant, DeAndre Washington, and Tunga Tuivasa, back, hamstring, and thumb injuries respectable, all listed as questionable. Running back Myles Gaskins is nursing a knee injury. He was limited in practice. Adam Shaheen, the tight end. Xavier Howard, the corner. Andrew Van Ginkel, the linebacker, Solomon Kennedy, the guard, Kevon Frazier, the safety, also listed as questionable for Sunday's game, including Cal Van Noy.
Yeah. Minnesota Vikings are at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Vikings are 17th in the power rankings. The Buccaneers are 10th. The Bucks favored by 6.5 points in this one. Minnesota and Dalvin Cook face a Tampa Bay defense that ranks number 1 in the NFL against the run, allowing only 74.2 yards per game. On offense, both Minnesota and Tampa Bay rank among the NFL's top teams in the red zone. On drives penetrating the 20-yard line this season, Minnesota has scored 30 touchdowns on 40 possessions. That's 75% for those who don't do math, and I don't do math. I just happen to have it written down here for me. That's
Shame
third
on
in the NFL. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay has scored 32 touchdowns in 45 red zone drives. That's 71.1%, sixth in the NFL. The Buccaneers and Tom Brady are coming off their bye and in 18 career regular season games after a bye. Brady is 14-4 with 4,573 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions for a 96.4 passer rating. Boy, that sounds eerily close to what he has so far this season. Never mind after a bye week. Yeah, 3,300 yards, 28 touchdowns. Oh, double digit, 11 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Still not 30 for 30.
Lost that one.
Still not 30 for 30.
Yeah, no, it's not 30 for 30, but you did lose that when you're like, oh, there's no way Brady throws 10 interceptions this year.
Yeah, I did say that. Brady doesn't normally throw double-digit interceptions. So I still stand by the analysis at the beginning of the season. Just didn't come true.
Just understand that every quarterback Arians has had year one in this offense has thrown double-digit interceptions. Every single one of them.
Oh, there you go. We're all taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, though, in this one. Nobody is giving the Vikings a shot, even though they have won the past two versus the Bucs, including 2017. But again, that's the Brady-less Bucs.
Yeah, I waffled on this. And before I go any further, I just want to talk about Vikings division mate. The Chicago Bears shut down facilities today due to 4 COVID positive tests.
Oh, yeah. Breaking news. Nice.
Keep an eye on that going for the rest of the week. I don't know which players or anything like that, but they have a 4th positive test today, so they shut down the facility. As far as this game, I could see the Vikings winning this game. This is not in any way a slam dunk for the Buccaneers. Part of me feels that on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, they've been doing it with a lot of smoke and mirrors because one week a particular unit looks great and the next week it looks like they've never played together before in their lives. So whether it's Tom Brady in the offense throwing up massive points and, 500 yards to the next week, just being completely anemic, they can't get anything going. Brady's getting knocked around like a piñata, or the defense shutting down Aaron Rodgers, but the next week giving up a bunch of yards to a mediocre offense. I can't call this team. And going into the season, this was, a lot of people's pick to be in the Super Bowl. Look, it's going to play out. Death taxes, the NFL, death taxes, and no host city in the Super Bowl. Those are your 3 guarantees in life. It's never going to happen. The Buccaneers are not. Look, make the playoffs, sure. Go to the Super Bowl, This team has too many inconsistencies for me to rely on them over the next 4 weeks. Win this game, sure. Lose this game, sure. I just can't call it. But I have a bigger question mark again on Kirk Cousins. So while I expect Dalvin Cooks to do Dalvin Cook things, I don't expect consistency from Kirk Cousins. And while he's played well over the last couple of weeks, over the course of the season, not so much.
The Tampa Bradys are going to be in the playoffs. That's not out of the question. And honestly, when you put Tom Brady in the playoffs, you have a chance. You have a very good chance of going to the Super Bowl. So I get that they've been inconsistent. They had the latest of all the buys. I think this team, you don't want to face this team in the playoffs, and they're going to be a lower seed based on their record currently and the way that the other teams are playing.
Okay, so
they're not going to be an easy out in the playoffs. I'm saying it's too early to say they're not going to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the exception of, obviously they're going to be a wild card team because they're not going to win a division. I believe the Saints have to win 1 or 2 more games, and that's a lock, regardless of what the Buccaneers do down the stretch. Plus, they've already lost twice to the Saints.
And there's a scenario for the Saints to win the division this week.
Right. So let's say the Saints end up with the bye. With the exception of the NFC East division winner, the Buccaneers will be on the road to whoever wins the West or whoever wins the North. And for the sake of argument, we say they trash whoever wins the East if they have to go there. But if they have to go to the West winner or the Green Bay Packers, who are obviously going to win the North, I don't give them a slam dunk chance to win that game. A chance, yes, but it's not a real confident chance to be like, yeah, I can't go in there effectively say they have a 50-50 shot to win this game. More like 30-40 tops.
And you know what? This is a perfect week. Sorry to interject. Take a look at Davis and Dean on the back end and got torched. Now, Justin Jefferson, 61 for 1,040 yards, 17 per. And yes, rookie offensive MVP candidate. I don't care. You add him to Thielen, right? And we say, we don't miss our old boy in Buffalo. We don't care. Justin Jefferson is a legitimate freaking star. And if he can get the ball and he can torch Davis and Dean on that back end, it limits everything that Tom Brady is about. It neutralizes the greatness of Tom Brady. He still doesn't have that mojo with the offense. He had it for one quarter against Kansas City. It's not the same. And Dalvin Cook can plant one leg and go north-south. Can he not?
No.
Yeah.
Well, good. That's the type of back that can beat that kind of speed, right? Devin White and Levante David are the best 1-2 combination linebackers as far as speed go that we've seen in almost a decade in the NFL. How do you beat them? Straight north-south. 1 foot in the ground and blow by. And that's why they get torched on the run too. Those two things, then it does not matter how much Tom Brady can jive with Antonio Brown if he can even stay on the field.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what makes it less scary, Pod. You know what I mean? It's like it's not the same. But anyways, I think there's enough blemishes there that Minnesota can make this a game. But I expect Tom to get his team on the rails after the bye week and get it headed towards being a threat in the playoffs. Yeah.
Doc, just so you know, every time you mention Justin Jefferson, a little part of me dies inside.
Well, yeah. Hey, I never knew he'd be that great. I thought he'd be good.
I did.
He wasn't the best receiver at LSU, but he was the best coming out. But
he was better than Jalen Reagor.
Yeah. Well, anyways, yeah. Next.
Did we do an injury report on this?
No. Quickly, Eric Kendricks, Riley Reif, Garrett Bradbury, Ezra Cleveland, Kyle Rudolph, Irv Smith are all questionable for the game. Running back Alexander Madison, Cook's backup, he is out. Doesn't say why. And Jeff Gladney, the corner, is questionable with a calf injury for the Buccaneers. Jason Pierre-Paul has a knee injury. He was limited. He's questionable, along with Donovan Smith, Steve McClendon, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Jamel Dean. Dean did clear concussion protocol, so he is available this week.
All right, the final 1:00 game, the Arizona Cardinals are at the New York Giants. The Cardinals 15th in the power rankings, the Giants 20th. They've moved up to 20. Cardinals are favored by 2 in this one. The Giants have moved up because they've won 4 in a row and 5 of their last 7, including an impressive Week 13 win at Seattle, in which New York held the league's number 3 scoring team entering the week to just 12 points. They had been averaging 31 points per game. The Giants' 2 losses in that span were by a combined 3 points. New York's defense, guided by coordinator Patrick Graham, leads the league in third down defense, 25%, 10 conversions in 40 attempts over the team's 4-game winning streak. Giants are attempting to author one of the most significant in-season turnarounds in league history. They could become the first team in NFL annals to reach the playoffs after opening winless through 5 games, and the first to reach the playoffs with 1 or fewer wins through 8 games. That was a long way of me saying, no, the Arizona Cardinals are going to win this one. Doc disagrees. Doc is on the
I think Patrick Graham just moved himself into the coaching conversation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He beat Russell Wilson the way you got to beat Russell Wilson, which is the same way. He's playing the same kind of quarterback this week, who's a little injured too, right? I think that if you can't get to him, create the bubble. You're a little bit of an amoeba. The Giants are fun to watch right now. And I think that's why. I think there's something magical happening. And I just feel it. That was such a fun game to watch. Plus, it's fun watching Russell Wilson lose and throwing interceptions for the first time because nothing bad ever happens to Russell Wilson. But Patrick Graham, coach of the week and moving towards coordinator of the year. That's what I say.
The Cardinals, even in a loss, outscored the New York Giants there, James.
Man, just I can't call it with the Giants, really. Look, Colt McCoy's a quarterback. This team was supposed to basically just fall apart. I mean, they were barely sputtering along with Daniel Jones. Colt McCoy comes in, and with good reason, we wrote them off as dead. Because, I mean, it's Colt McCoy. I haven't seen this guy active in a uniform since his days in Washington. So I can't say that I had any relative hopes. And then, of course, the way the NFC East is playing, which no one outside of it really cares about. But, yeah, give them credit. Team effort last week against the Seahawks, who I'll get into later. But I can see this game going either way. I just think that the Cardinals, offensively and defensively, are just slightly better than the Seahawks, especially with the way they played last week. And, yeah, the Cardinals' defense not going to allow the Giants to basically just matriculate the ball up and down the field like that. I think we will see some pressure on McCoy this week, unlike last week. I think they get to him. They befuddle him in some ways, make him second-guess what he's seeing. I definitely don't expect Gallman to go off the way he did, to have a monster game like he had last week. I believe he had like over 120 yards from scrimmage.
135.
Yeah, because Seahawks had no answer for him either in the running game or in the receiving game, which I don't understand coverage concepts sometimes by some of these defensive coordinators. Pittsburgh, I'm looking at you. But, yeah, just look, Murray is not on the injury report this week. We know his shoulder is probably still bothering him, but he's not on the report this week. It's not to say he's fully healthy, but for this time of the year, no one is. I just expect the Cardinals, especially with their, result from last week, I expect them to bounce back this week and play better. And this is the opponent. If no one else from the NFC East, might as well be, any of these four teams is always a good get right bounce back game from your previous outing. So
I have my pick as to which of these NFC East teams is going to come out as the playoff representative.
Not Philly.
And it's not the New York Giants.
The Washington football team.
So what do we have for an injury report on this one? Since you mentioned a couple
defensive end Jordan Phillips of the Cardinals has been placed on injury reserve, designated to return with a hamstring. Jalen Thompson, the safety, Devondre Campbell, the linebacker, Damata Pico Sr., and Leaky Fotu, the defensive tackles. Charles Washington, Rashard Lawrence, the defensive tackle. They are all questionable for Sunday. Larry Fitzgerald is out, even though he's been designated to return this week. In this game, but he's still currently as of today, he's listed as out. For the Giants, Daniel Jones is questionable. There is a chance that he may play this week, but highly unlikely. Still nursing that hamstring injury. Linebacker Blake Martinez is questionable with a back, and offensive lineman Matt Pert is listed as questionable, along with corners Darnay Holmes and Madre Harper.
All right, we move to the 4:00 games. So hello, all you people who skipped the beginning of the podcast and have joined us here at the 4:00 games. How nice to see you. The Indianapolis Colts are at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Colts are 11th in the power rankings. The Raiders 14th. Not enough for home field advantage. The power rankings will stick with the Colts as their choice. Vegas is favoring them by 3 points. And boy, the Raiders really almost screwed up last week and allowed the Jets to win. But no, the Jets said, no, we'll take care of that. Here you go. We're going to all up blitz you and just throw up a pass to an open wide receiver who burns undrafted rookie in coverage, and you're all set. Sorry about that. We didn't mean to make it that close. What is going? There was so much hope here for the Raiders just like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, it's like, what is going on with the Las Vegas Raiders?
Josh Jacobs. He's been missing the last couple of weeks due to injury. And look, say what you will about John Gruden and his offense. They need their running game. And for as well as David Carr is playing, this is probably his best yearly performance.
David never played as good as Derek.
A car is a car is a car. This car for the Raiders is having his best season since they went 12-4, and he got knocked out with 2 weeks left when they made the playoffs. But even despite that, he's not really consistently connecting with his wide receivers. His best receiver is his tight end, Darren Waller, which is not a bad thing, but the inconsistency with his wide receivers, and strangely enough, it has nothing even to do with Nelson Aguilar. He's missing receivers. He's missed guys who are wide open, 5 yards of separation running downfield, crossing routes, dig stops, wrong placement. I mean,
second last play of the last game.
As far as consistently playing good for 4 quarters, it only happened once this year, and that's when they beat the Chiefs. And outside of that, it's been a little bit erratic. The first quarter he'll come out sloppy. The second quarter he'll be perfect. The third quarter is like a crapshoot, and the fourth quarter as well depends on the situation. If they're behind, he's going to play well enough for them to win, and if they're ahead, he's going to play just barely average enough for them not to lose. But still, I don't know. They need their running game. And whether Jacobs is there or not, they still need to lean on that running game and pound the rock. That for me is their best chance, because unfortunately this week they're not going up against a defense that constantly runs, fire man or engage 8. The Colts still have one of the best passing defenses in the league for a reason. I mean, and they play as such. Can they be had from time to time? Yes. But the best way to get over on them is running backs running backs, period. Whether that's running the ball up the gut to try.
And I could do that against the Colts with DeForest Buckner back.
Yeah, when D-Buck's playing, when he's playing, they are an elite defense.
True, but you can. I'm not going to say neutralize, but you can limit his effectiveness on the game at key moments. Also, linebackers, as well as the Colts linebackers are playing, they tend to get lost sometimes in coverage on these running backs and pass coverage. So Jacobs and Richard, whoever else is in that backfield, they need to be out there healthy, running and catching the ball. Because that's going to be the way they win this game. And that's my concern, because I don't think they can consistently pull that off for 4 quarters against the Colts.
See, I'm glad you chimed in there, Doc, on DeForest Buckner, because if we ever wanted to make a case for a non-quarterback to be the MVP or player of the year, I would present you DeForest Buckner and him being out of that defense and him being into that defense and how different the Colts team is when that occurs.
He's the best pickup, if there's an award for that.
There's best pickup. But we'll make it one.
Best player, it's right away. Never seen such black and white day and night. It's just amazing when he's in there how much he affects the game. And I know the Niners miss him. But another thing, too, I'm a big T.Y. Hilton fan. And if he can build on what he's done, they'll win the AFC South. And, of course, Philip Rivers already slow enough already, but with that turf toe, if he can fight through that And they can get Hines, who I picked up in fantasy about 6-7 weeks ago, and he's been good for me. Pittman has been playing well. Overall,
my friend has some, Naheem Hines.
What's that?
My friend has Naheem Hines on his fantasy team. Yeah.
Yeah, he used him as a flex. Yep. He's done well. But I think
he's actually a starter on my friend's team.
Yeah. And that was a complete anomaly that they actually won last week, and then they were torched the week before. They're going south, and I think that's the pod, the stir. Who stirs the drink in Oakland? It's the running game.
In Vegas. But I knew exactly what you're talking about. By the way, just to highlight T.Y. Hilton here for you, he's looking for his third in a row with 80-plus receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. But he is also only one of two in the NFL with 500-plus receiving yards in each of his past 9 seasons. Can you tell me the other one?
9 seasons.
500-plus receiving yards in 9 seasons.
Larry?
Right.
It's not Larry. And it's not Jerry Rice in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Oh, right now. Oh, Hopkins.
Larry Fist. No,
not Hopkins. No.
Let's
put it this way: he lives close to you, James.
Julio.
It's Julio Jones.
Really?
Yep.
Huh.
There you go.
Things that make you go, huh.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have convinced me I'm going to go with the Colts in this one, just based on DeForest Buckner alone. I'm assuming DeForest Buckner not on the injury report, James.
No, he is not on the injury report, but Colts who are on the injury report, LaRaven Clark was placed on injury reserve. That's a tackle with an Achilles injury. The other tackle, Anthony Costanzo, does show up as questionable, along with guard Braden Smith. Anthony Walker, the linebacker, Kamoko Toure, the defensive end, Taekwon Lewis, defensive end, Kari Willis, a safety, and Bobby Okereke, the linebacker, also show up as questionable. And, Rivers, turf toe, that he's going to have surgery on at the end of the season. Basically, he's not practicing for the rest of the season. He'll be the perpetual questionable from here on out. For the Raiders, Josh Jacobs, ankle injury, didn't practice on Wednesday, but he is questionable. Zay Jones, the receiver, shows up as questionable, along with tackle Sam Young, cornerback Nevin Lawson, tackle Maurice Hurst, and safety Jeff Heath.
All right. The New York Jets are at the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are 9th. The Jets remain at 32. Vegas has favored the Seahawks by 13.5. We are all taking the Seahawks. James has not locked it in, which is a surprise. But I will tell you this. Do not give the Jets 13.5 points. Not if you're the Seattle Seahawks. That is way too many points. I will take the Jets with the points. I do believe the Seahawks have enough to win in this game. I don't think we need to talk too much about the Jets. We've already made a few references to the Engage 8 cover 0 play that helped the Raiders win the game. We also talked a lot about them on our Sound Off podcast from Tuesday.
Did you guys talk about Greg Williams schlong? My package, like how is this guy? It's kind of funny because I just did an interview with a Jet, and we were talking about what was the living room. If you could scrape social media and you could have live cameras in houses, how did Jets fans react? Right? It's fascinating dynamic. And knowing Greg, listen, I know Greg Williams as good as anybody, and I tell you, from the moment he walked into Buffalo and was announced as the head coach. And he took over a defense that was number 1 or 2 in the league at the time, run by the great late Ted Cottrell. And when asked and said, well, we had a number 1 or 2 defense last year. This has been top 2 in the league. He goes, this defense will be better than that. That was a drop to my, oh, stop it. This guy's package arrives at a meeting before he shows up. And that was just him going, I know what Gruden's going to do. And he did it to my Saints after the Bounty Gate crap. It cost us a Super Bowl when we lost Alex Smith running down the sidelines, which he did need to on a long third down or whatever it was. This guy has been a flying joke, and I wish they had kept him on to be the only defensive coordinator that has been the defensive coordinator for 2 0-16 teams. That would have been great. But anyways, had to say it. But good for the Jets. Good for the Jets that he did that, because in order to change that culture, they need new everything. So,
to me, the only question here is one, why would you fire the guy that helped you keep your first round draft choice? He was not the guy that you wanted to fire.
Yeah.
The second thing would be in regards to this game is, can the Seahawks some way find anything that resembles a defense against the Jets? That's my question. I mean, they got to be able to stop the Jets, right?
The two main reasons they lost last week: offensive line protecting Russell Wilson and pass defense. Both were non-existent. Both of them. I don't know what the coverage scheme is for the secondary and the linebackers with the Seahawks. The head coach, Pete Carroll, defensive-minded coach. You got a former great in Ken Norton Jr. as a defensive coordinator. And I don't know what the scheme, concepts, anything is with them, but outside of blitzing Adams on every single play, their safety that they acquired from the Jets, which for them, this is a revenge game.
Revenge.
They have no pass rush and no coverage scheme. And my thing is, you can't clone Adams and put 11 of them out there on the field. I'm pretty sure they would love to, because then they'd get to the quarterback and cover at the same time, and it'd be awesome.
And they don't even disguise it. They don't even disguise it. They don't put him on a slot and then blindly rush him. It's just It just block the son of a bee. If you want to do a single high safety, we'll burn you, and a good OC will burn it every time. Yeah.
And that was one of the things that frustrated me in the Monday night game with Philadelphia, is that if Adams is in the box, he's rushing the quarterback. That's a slight adjustment that the quarterback needs to relay to the offensive line. Like, hey, this guy is coming. Account for him in pass protection, because if he's the fifth or sixth guy, someone's got to account for him. Let the running back or tight end know that's your guy to block. But for him to be screaming off the edges untouched every single time he's in the box, there's something going on with blocking schemes that people are just not picking up, not accounting for. And it's not like he's coming down late. It'd be one thing if he was coming in late right before the snap. He's lining up in the box. It is quite possibly the easiest tell right now as far as what the Seahawks are doing on defense. And if you can account for him as a rusher, you can then pick this team apart, which is what the Giants did to them last week, because now he's not back there covering anybody. But if he's back there covering someone, eliminate that guy from your just basically just eliminate him as an option, because he's not going to get the ball. You know, and that's all they have going for them on defense. And outside of that, they're a mess. And while I thought this offensive line was going to come around this year and do a better job of protecting Russell Wilson, this looked like 3 years ago when they had no one blocking for Russell Wilson. You know, week 1 against the Packers, where Russell takes a snap, from center in the shotgun, and all 4 Green Bay Packers were immediately in his face. Like the offensive line just got to put a hand on anybody. It was like, hey, Russell's right there. Go at him. That's what the Giants look like.
Do you remember when every week we talked about Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright? Every week. And it was like, oh, my God, second coming of Christ. It's like, oh, it's just gone. It's just gone. And so you're right. I listen, they have shown, at least this last few weeks, they're better than they were. But this is problematic. You're right about the spread pod, because a lot of weird things can happen. I think this is maybe a touchdown game. There's the gloss has come off Russell Wilson. We all know that, right? And yeah, we're getting sick of hearing about it. Not from you, but from everybody. From everybody. It's like, my God, he was off the prom list a couple weeks ago. But
listen, he has never received.
I know. But listen, they'll win out, and he'll be relevant again. By the end of the year, he'll be back in the MVP conversation. They'll win out, and it'll make the playoffs interesting. But without that D, I don't know. You're right. It's just weird. If you put Jamal where he's been placed, James, where he's been placed, a bloody Pop Warner coach could coach against that. I don't get it. Is there something I don't know about football? Nope. Even give me something outside the slot. Give me something hidden behind the weak side linebacker. Give me something. No. There he is. He's got to be blocked. That's as academic as it gets.
Let me give you one positive here for the Seahawks, and let's see if you guys know this little bit of trivia.
The seafood's good in Seattle.
There are 3 running backs who have 4+ rushing touchdowns and 4+ receiving touchdowns this season. 4+. Wow. There's only 3 of them that have done it. Scored both rushing and receiving 4+ times. Do you guys know who those 3 running backs are?
Alvin, Carson, and are the first 2 right?
You have Alvin Kamara and Chris Carson, correct?
Chris Carson, and I would say Dalvin?
No, that's a good guess.
Dalvin doesn't have the receiving touchdowns.
That's right.
Dalvin's not catching passes this year for some reason. Kareem Hunt is the other.
Yeah, that's right. Because
I should have known it'd be one of those Browns.
RB1 a couple weeks. That's right.
Yeah. Those Browns backs are doing the 1,000 thing, which is
of course they are. Injury report for this game includes aforementioned Bobby Wagner, hamstring injury. He's questionable. All 3 running backs show up on the injury report. Travis Homer and Carlos Hyde, knee and toe respectively, are questionable. Chris Carson, foot injury, was limited. He's questionable. Rashard Penny is out with a knee injury. Cornerback Quentin Dunbar was placed on injury reserve. And Damon Harrison Sr., defensive end, Carlos Dunlap, Kyle Fuller are all listed as questionable as well. For the Jets, as if anyone cares, Brashard Perriman, Frank Gore are questionable. Denzel Mims is out due to a personal reason. He won't be available. Tight end Trayvon Wesco has been placed on injury reserve.
I'm told his personal reason is he doesn't want to play for the New York Jets.
I would love it if that were true. I do not know. Cornerback Bless Austin was placed on injury reserve, designated to return with a neck injury. And, that's all that. Marcus May also shows up as questionable as well with George Fant to tackle.
Atlanta Falcons are at the Los Angeles Chargers. Falcons 25. Chargers are 27th. Vegas has the Falcons favored by 2.5. With 2 passing touchdowns on Sunday against those Falcons, Mr. Herbert will become the 4th rookie with at least 25 touchdown passes in NFL history. He will join Baker Mayfield, who had 27 in his rookie year, Peyton Manning, who had 26, and Russell Wilson, who also had 26. Manning and Mayfield are the only rookies to also pass for at least 3,500 yards, which I believe Mr. Herbert is at 3,224. So very good chance that we're going to see Justin Herbert reach that goal as well. Despite a 45-0 drubbing by my New England Patriots, I don't think the Chargers are going to have a problem with the Falcons. I appear to be all alone on this island. James, you have even locked the Falcons in. What have the Falcons done lately that makes you feel so confident about the Falcons?
They're playing better under Raheem Morris. That's pretty much all I need, really.
They might be playing better, but they're still losing.
They're not losing. Wait, hold on.
Well, they lost last week.
Well, yeah, they lost last week. it was a close game. And again, like I'm pretty sure MJ has said, 'cause I'm pretty sure he's done a write-up.
Oh, I've got MJ's write-up. Yeah, I'll go check that
They
out.
are 4-3 since Raheem Morris took over. So they're a game above 500. It's not bad. It's not great. But across those 7 games, they're playing much better than the 0-5 start when they were completely inept on either or both sides of the ball. So the change has helped. They're better situationally. And look, as MJ has said in his write-ups, as I've said on the show, having lived here in Atlanta for 20 years, the Falcons-Saints game is the most baffling, confusing, unthinkable experience I've ever seen in my life. You go in thinking one team has all the momentum and they should easily win this game, and they blow it in the most spectacular way possible. Last week's game, look, probably went according to plan if you ask the Saints fan. I mean, we have one here. But honestly, I felt that based on the first meeting and, the quick turnaround of playing them twice in 3 weeks, that they'd bounce back. They obviously played better. They had a chance to win at the end. I questioned some of the offensive play calls down the stretch as far as, not getting the first down and going for the touchdown on 4th and 10 from the 15. My thing is get close to the sticks, something or another, just, try to create a shorter 4th down on 3rd down. But it's like everything went straight to the end zone. I never understood that with any team whatsoever down the stretch because time was not a factor. They had a legit chance to tie that game up last week. So, yeah, the Chargers, look, I feel bad for Anthony Lynn. He is getting a bunch of crap dumped on him only because Justin Herbert is playing the way he's playing thus far. I'm not even going to call it well. Yes, he's putting up eye-popping numbers, but he's a rookie. This team is not winning or losing because of him. Lynn made probably the most questionable decision this year when he fired his special teams coordinator. And then we saw what happened last week. And now he's saying that he's personally taken over because I guess the rest of the coaches on the special team staff each had a say in how they were going to play certain things. That was probably not the best idea. And it doesn't put him in the best light as far as managing people and staff. So, I mean, if he's going to be in charge of special teams, fine. If you didn't promote one of those remaining assistants to be the coordinator, shame on you, because it only needs to be one voice in a unit's room as far as what the heck we're doing on that side of the ball. There really should only be one voice. Too many cooks in the kitchen with the remaining coaches. Hopefully that's cleaned up, but still, I don't think this team has enough to hang with and or beat the Falcons.
Chargers have the worst special teams in NFL history. And that's all about preparedness. And I take that back to Anthony Lynn. I like the guy, right? Belichick feeds on what, Pod? Rookie
Special
quarterback.
Teams and rookie quarterback.
Rookie quarterback, two of it, right? And they killed him with both. Only 3 wins. The Cincy, Jags, and Jets. That quarterback, the way he's playing, that kind of talent on the outside. Defense has been banged up, but generally, if Derwin James was in there and they were doing this, it'd be even worse. I think Lynn's gone. I think there's too many blemishes now. Atlanta, James, was never in that game until my Swiss Army knife, all-world rookie-type quarterback had a brain cramp, right?
The fumble.
And to stay in that game, they had to do one thing, protect Mac Ryan. And they did. That was an anomaly. That Saints D-line has tortured most offensive lines with a 9-man rotation that is getting to the quarterback, pressure and sacks. And they kept him upright, and he still didn't get it done. Why? Because the alchemy of everything happening on the back end, even with our number one defensive back out at the time, still, Calvin made a few great catches. Julio made a few great catches, but they were never in that game until the Hail Mary at the end. They really weren't in the game. There's just not enough talent there. You're right. It doesn't matter how bad the Saints would be or good. Same with the Atlanta Falcons. It's one of those rivalries that it's going to be a one-score game. It always is. It shocks me every time they play. It doesn't matter.
And it never makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't. You're right. So move on.
And I'll just add, the Patriots' strength on their defense is their secondary. And I know they're not a top 10 defense.
That's why they're going to be in this game.
About it, but the secondary shut down those wide receivers. The Falcons don't have the same secondary. And as I'm looking at MJ's write-up here on the Atlanta Falcons, they got some big names on the injury report this week. As he notes here, the most noteworthy ones: Todd Gurley, Keanu Neal, Ito Smith, Dante Fowler, Foye Olukun, and Grady Jarrett. Julio Jones also did not participate in practice. So, I mean, those are some big names, big contributors, both in the secondary and the running game, which is MJ says that's what needs to get fixed is the running game. With Todd Gurley hurt.
He's an old man.
Smith hurt.
He's running like an old man. Yeah.
There are no running backs in Atlanta.
Yeah.
They don't have a running game, and that's not going to get fixed this season and not going to get fixed for this game. So for me, I don't see the Chargers, like I said, struggling like they might have.
And Joey Bosa could get to Matt Ryan 3-4 times. You're convincing me. Yep.
So
you're convincing me.
I'm not bailing, but to further elaborate on the injured players, the complete list as of the time of this recording, all of these players are questionable, by the way. No one's listed as out.
Yeah.
They're just questionable. Dante Fowler Jr., hamstring. James Carpenter, inner thigh injury. Ricardo Allen, concussion protocol. Grady Jarrett, inner thigh. Foyeseti Olukun, neck injury. Keanu Neal, ankle. Ito Smith, neck injury. Hayden Hurst, ankle. Todd Gurley, knee. And Julio Jones, hamstring. All of them either didn't practice or were limited in practice on Wednesday. So,
and by the way,
there you have it.
And by the way, when Julio doesn't play, Matt Ryan doesn't play well, even with Calvin Ridley and Russell Gage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, the Chargers side of things: Joe Reed, wide receiver, ribs; Tremaine Pope, neck; Joshua Kelly, foot. Those are your running backs. All three listed as questionable. Speaking of running backs, Justin Jackson is placed on injured reserve, designated to return with his knee injury. Quarterbacks Chris Harris Jr. and Casey Hayward Jr. are listed as questionable, along with safety Rayshon Jenkins. So I don't know. Julio might not being there, probably not a problem with 3/4 of the Chargers secondary on the injury report.
This next game should be a quick one, but it's the Green Bay Packers at the Detroit Lions. Packers are 5th in the power rankings. The Lions are 24th. Packers favored by 7.5. They have won their past 3 versus the Lions. When they played in September, the Packers doubled them up 42-21. I haven't seen anything this season that suggests that game could go any differently. I would suspect a similar score, quite honestly. 42-21. Sounds about right. We're all taking the Packers in this one.
James, where's DeAndre Swift this week?
He has an illness, not COVID related. He was limited in practice this week. Kerryon Johnson, knee injury.
His illness was the way the Lions play made him sick.
That's probably what it was. But yeah, both running backs for the Lions are on the injury report. The only running back not on the injury report this week is some old man named wait, what does it say?
Adrian.
Yeah, Peterson.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more analysis we need on this game outside of the Lions are the Lions, the Packers are the Packers, and this is the second game of their new head coach.
By the way, I have a friend who has Devontae Adams on his fantasy team. Devontae Adams, 4 games, 10-plus catches, 100-plus receiving yards, and a touchdown catch in 2020. That's tied for the second most in a single season in NFL history. Third player in NFL history with 5-plus catches and a receiving touchdown in 7 straight games. He can become the first player since 2018 with a receiving touchdown in 8 straight games. Davante Adams. I mean, if you want to go with another non-quarterback MVP candidate, I present to you Davante Adams. Aaron Rodgers, though, 36 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Yeah,
right there with
that's
Mahomes.
why he won't be mentioned.
Mahomes and Rodgers are going to take it, but Davante Adams is obviously the key contributor to those stats for Aaron Rodgers.
True, but the problem with that is that anytime the quarterback helping the wide receiver is having a season like that, the wide receiver gets overshadowed despite his great season. I mean, look, Davante Adams can put up all the great numbers he wants. We know Aaron Rodgers pretty much is the reason for that, because his numbers across the board passing wise are going to look even more phenomenal than we expected. It'd be one thing if Davante Adams was doing this with, say, someone like a Matthew Stafford or Kirk Cousins or Mitchell Trubisky. Then it'd be like, oh yeah, he's definitely an MVP candidate because his quarterback is average at best, but he's playing with arguably the best quarterback in the league, who is
Matthew
playing
Stafford's
like the best
receiver. Yeah, Matthew Stafford's leading receiver is T.J. Hawkinson. 52 catches.
He's a tight end, by the way.
Yeah.
Hawkinson's not a tight end.
Yeah, it's a stark comparison to Rodgers' leading receiver, Davante Adams, 84 catches, 1,029 yards.
And that's the point I'm making. Because Rodgers is playing so well, the idea that Adams could get any MVP votes is ludicrous because of how well Rodgers is playing. It overshadows the wide receiver production, even despite Adams' performance. What I'm saying is, if he was playing with any other quarterback not named Rodgers, who's either average to mediocre at best, then yes, this would be a standout season and we'd be talking about him as an MVP candidate. We're not going to, because he plays with Aaron Rodgers.
See, that's where my argument to you would be, sure, Aaron Rodgers is playing out of this world, but when Davante Adams doesn't play, he's not all that out of that world. And a third of Rodgers' production is thanks to Davante Adams.
I get that.
He's the Michael Thomas of this year.
And if Davante Adams was doing this with, say, Matthew Stafford, then Matthew Stafford would be getting MVP consideration, not Davante Adams.
Also for the Lions on the injury report, because we don't have to spend much more time on this, Kenny Galladay, hip injury, didn't practice. And cornerback Jeff Okudah is on the injury report, questionable, along with defensive ends Deshaun Hurd and Austin Bryant. For the Packers, A.J. Dillon is out, running back with illness. He actually is placed on the COVID-19 list. Billy Wynn, defensive end, was placed on injured reserve with a triceps injury. Simons Stepanik, the guard, Kevin King, the corner, Jay Sternberger, the tight end, Equanimus. I can never say this dude's name. Wide receiver St. Brown.
Love that name.
Mercedes Lewis, the tight end, Alan Lazard are all listed as questionable for this week. St. Brown is in concussion protocol. It's probably the one most glaring injury. Lazard has a core injury, so keep an eye on those other wide receivers, because for your friends who have Davante Adams, more production out of him this week.
Yes. Love that. New Orleans Saints are at the Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, should we do an old school superfan battle on this one?
We don't have to.
All right. I didn't think so. The Saints are third in the power rankings. The Philadelphia Eagles are 28th. The Saints favored by 7 in this particular game. Rookie quarterback Jalen Hurts is expected to make his first career start on Sunday against the Saints. Wait, Hurts didn't start the other day? I thought he did.
Nope. Came in the second half, but, whatever.
Well, he becomes the 6th rookie quarterback to start a game this season. This will mark the 5th consecutive season that at least 6 rookie quarterbacks have started at least one game, and that is the longest such streak in the Super Bowl era. Since the beginning of Week 9, the Saints' defense leads the NFL by a significant margin in fewest points allowed per game, 8.8, fewest yards allowed per game, 233.4, and fewest rushing yards allowed per game, 55.8. New Orleans also leads the NFL since Week 9 with 9 interceptions, 13 takeaways, while ranking 2nd in that span with 17 sacks. I could easily lock this up. James has. And Doc obviously feels good about the Saints as well.
No, I don't feel good. It's just one of those games. I think listen, the Saints always crap the bed once en route. They do every year. I know. Listen, I know you're down on your team, brother. I know you are. But we were waiting for Taysom. When is he going to have one of those games? He hasn't had one yet. But Alvin Kamara is what's that dog that goes, where's Fido? Or I think whatever it was. Yeah, because right now the Saints are healthy. The D, as long as the D is playing the way they are, doesn't matter. Maybe it just neutralizes it if we're expecting one of those games from Taysom. But I think here's the funky thing. I think Drew's going to have to dress. He's going to probably dress, and he'll be just sitting on the bench. But I like to take my hats off. Something that we're not talking about this week is Michael Thomas. 500 catches, the fastest in NFL history by 11 games. Think about that. The Julio Jones of the world, the Jerry Rice, all the great wide receivers. The first to 500 catches by 11 games, I think, is monumental. When Drew comes back, I wouldn't doubt in the playoffs if we see Drew Brees completing 20 passes in one game to Michael Thomas. He's playing that well. Can't guard Mike right now. He's back to where he was. And everybody seems to be healthy. If they stay healthy, they've got enough talent to win this game. I think it's still going to be a touchdown game. That's why I'm still a little iffy about anything. When they're peaking too soon. If you look at the DVOA, they are blowing away this league right now. They're one of 5 teams in the last 30 years to be tops in special teams, defense, and offense. With all in top ranks. It's weird. It's just weird. They're peaking too soon. When are they going to fall off? It's not if. So that's why I'm kind of still have some hope there, Philly Eagles fan. Have some hope. So,
or not, because the last time Michael Thomas. Well, I just wanted to crush you some more there, James, because Michael Thomas, the last time he played this team, 12 catches, 171 yards, and a touchdown. That was the 2018 NFC divisional game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Aims for his third in a row versus Philly with 90-plus receiving yards and a touchdown catch. That includes the postseason.
Yeah, he'll get that.
Yeah. I'm going to continue to crush you.
Go ahead.
The Philadelphia Eagles, -11 takeaway giveaway ratio.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Negative point differential, 21.1 points for, 25.6 against.
Mm-hmm.
Against the Saints, who have 28.9 points for, 20.1 points against. Yeah. There's no chance, Doc.
I know, and they're weighted deep.
As a fan, I feel you. Yeah. You want to be. You don't feel that comfortable, and I'm the same way.
Because everything points it. It's everything points the way. There's just no way they win this game. We're too good, especially the weighted DVOA. The last 10 games of this season, it's just there's no way they're beating this team. I don't care who's quarterbacking, even if they just snap the ball to Allen. But this is the NFL. This is the NFL.
The Saints could win this ball game with Sean Payton playing quarterback.
Yeah. All right, so let's play the game.
All right.
Let's play the game. If the Eagles do win this game, they won because
Taysom turns the ball
collapse
over.
on the Saints.
Taysom turns over the ball 4 times, and the Eagles get a special teams touchdown.
It had to be a complete breakdown in just common football knowledge by every person wearing a Saints uniform who touches the field, because that's the only way that they're going to lose this game. There's no way that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win this football game. And I'm a fan who's still going to sit on his couch on Sunday and root for this team like his life depended on it. But I completely understand we are not going to win this game.
James, you want to know what I'm doing on Sunday? I've got to do the recipes every week thematically. So this week is going to be Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. Yeah, they're good. But my Eagles friend, social media friend, we text each other more during the game. And she goes, Hurts is starting. I have hope in the world. Hurts is starting. I go, wow, you got a lot. Listen, even Fletcher Cox has one of those monumental games, and maybe Cesar Ruiz or Nick Easton, whiff on a couple of blocks, which cost Drew 5 of his 11 crack ribs. Something weird's going to have to happen. We know that. But let's just enjoy the food and enjoy the fact that we've got NFL football. I'm simplifying that. I'm still nervous.
Speaking of those players, because of several of those you mentioned are in the injury report, Drew Brees is expected to remain sidelined through Week 14. So he's still on injury reserve.
He's not going to play, but he might dress. Yeah.
So he's not even going to dress. They're not expecting him. He's available to come back this week, but they're not pulling him off the list yet. Cornerback Justin Hardee was placed on injury reserve, designated to return with that inner thigh injury. Janoris Jenkins and Deontay Harris show up knee and neck respectively. Ryan Ramczyk and I thought there was another one. Ryan Ramczyk is questionable. That's your tackle. Shai Tuttle and Malcolm Brown, the defensive tackles, along with Marcus Davenport, the defensive end, show up as questionable as well.
Always.
For the Eagles, as if it even matters, Davion Taylor, the linebacker, was placed on injury reserve following the game against the Packers with a knee injury. Linebacker T.J. Edwards, cornerback Darius Slay, defensive tackle Fletcher Cox are all listed as questionable. Hamstring, knee, and neck injury, respectively, for those three. Alshon Jeffrey should quit playing in Philadelphia. He has a calf, is listed as questionable. I don't care anymore.
Is that what we call a bunny punch?
Not even a bunny punch. I just want Alshon Jeffrey. Look. So, Doc, as we discussed before Pod jumped in, my biggest frustration with this team is the offense. Yeah. Because for the periods of time that the defense plays well, the offense does nothing to help. And I mean absolutely nothing. And the more and more I examine the course of the season for the Eagles, and by the way, I'm not saying anything positive about this team going forward. I don't care what the hell happens. There is a befuddlement of stupidity and incompetence from top to bottom, from organization all the way down to players. And that includes everybody in between, including the coaches, as far as how this offense is run and why plays are called. And the biggest issue, and like I said, Doc, I brought this up, the participation awards that are handed out to every offensive skill player, in which the coaching staff feels everybody has to get X number of plays every single week. That's how you lose cohesion and consistency as far as your gameplay.
Unless you're Sean
Travis Fulgham. Right. Well, Sean Payton
will give you 11 different groupings in the first
I get
quarter.
The groupings, but for the most part, it's the same people in those groupings. If those groupings call for a wide receiver, Michael Thomas is that wide receiver. I don't care if it's one receiver or three receivers. It's Michael Thomas. With the Philadelphia Eagles, with their groupings, the groupings somehow dictate different personnel. One grouping will require Rager and Hightower. Another grouping requires Fulgham and Ward. Another grouping requires Jeffrey and Hightower. And it makes no sense because you're doing this every single play. And that baffles my mind. Rotating the running backs such that on first down, it's Jordan Howard. On second down, it's Miles Sanders. On third down, it's Corey Clement. If we get a first down again, then I'm seeing oh gosh, why am I drawing a blank on his name? The short guy, Boston Scott.
Yeah. And
my thing is, all four running backs don't need offensive snaps.
True.
At best, two backs and a third to spell them when just in case something happens, and the fourth one is just special teams. And whether it's Clement or Scott, one of them needs to be designated the returner primarily. They don't need offensive snaps at this point. If you're going two back mainly, or even three back, the main two backs need to be Sanders and Howard. We don't need this constant rotation of, okay, here's a new down, we're switching out the running back. For what? He's not hurt. He's not gassed. I don't understand this. And for whatever reason, Miles Sanders was on pace earlier this year for about 12 to 1,300 yards rushing. With 4 games left, he's still sitting on about 630 yards for the season rushing. If he gets 1,000, it'll be in spite of the offense's play calling, and that falls on Doug Peterson. So
Yeah.
So, James, the good thing is that this is a podcast, so it's recorded, so I can just cut this out and play it next week. Similar. I've been saying this for weeks now. So my question to you would be, Doug Peterson still the head coach next year?
yeah, because the way he's answering questions in post conferences and the way he's coaching his game, he's coaching with a devil-may-care attitude. Like, he flat out doesn't give a damn what happens. Like, here's the play call going in. This is the result. I don't care. Someone asked him in a post game after the Packers loss. Travis Fulgham was one of the best wide receivers in the league for 4 weeks, and then Alshon comes off an injury, and you bench Fulgham. Why'd you do that? He never answered the question.
So I do believe you're probably right, but every year there's that surprise firing. Like, whoa, why'd that team let that guy go?
It'd be nice if he was.
I think Doug Peterson would be the candidate in that regard, because I think most of the other candidates, the guys on the hot seat, we already pretty much know. We feel comfortable with who those people are, who's going to lose their job. A lot of them have already lost their job. I think Doug Peterson would be a guy that I wouldn't be shocked.
Surprise firing? Yeah.
Who are you going to hire? Who are you going to hire?
Well, that's always the question.
Careful what you wish for.
Right.
I would definitely try to snatch up the enemy.
Yeah.
Look,
well, Eric Bieniemy's going to have his choice of team, though. And does he really want to go to the team that's going to be either A, saddled with Carson Wentz, or B, saddled with the cap hit that Carson Wentz provides?
Hey, man, they're in a tough situation. You're in a tough spot, man. It's like, what are you going to do?
Look,
what if Jalen plays well the next 4 games? What are you going to do? You're stuck with the salary.
Somebody's getting traded. And look, this is the
By the way,
move
the
to
salary
start
cap
Jalen
went down next year too. Not up.
Yeah, I know. And there are players who want to get cut and probably shouldn't come back. Top 3 off my head that don't need to come back next season. Jason Peters, if he comes back, he can be an offensive line coach. Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson never need to suit up for Philadelphia ever again. I would love it if we cut Jalen Mills because he is a horrible football player, period. Linebacking core, completely revamping, but that's never going to happen because, again, salary cap issue. So we're not going to get quality talent at those positions. And then you're going to be convincing our key defensive linemen, the good ones, to take pay cuts.
By the way, my son did a Philadelphia Eagles rebuild that you'd be quite proud of, but he made moves that they're never going to happen. So yeah,
of course they're never going to happen. But I mean, this organization right now is a mess. And several years ago, McNabb got benched for AJ Feely, and maybe this benching causes. Look, we already established we're not going to win. Does Hurts play well in this loss? Don't know. Depends on how well the line blocks. That also is contingent upon where Jason Peters plays on this offensive line come Sunday. Because wherever he is, he's going to get whipped. He's too old. It's done. It's over with. I understand the Super Bowl year. He got hurt. He was frustrated. He got hurt the next year. He's been wanting to play a full season, trying to help us get back to the Super Bowl so he can actually play in the game. I feel for the guy. Trust me, my heart bleeds for him. It's not going to happen.
All right, we got 3 games to go. 1 still at 4:00, and the other 2 are possible playoff previews. So
go for it.
We got to roll. The Washington football team is at the San Francisco 49ers. The football team has jumped to 18th in the power rankings from 23. The 49ers remain steady at 19. The power rankings will take the 49ers because with home field advantage, they would have the lower ranking. The spread is -3 for the San Francisco 49ers. Alex Smith this season is 3-1 as the starter, led Washington to 3 straight wins, including their surprise victory to most against Pittsburgh. However, if you listen to this podcast, there was one person who said, you know what? Washington is going to pull the upset. Gentlemen, that's how you do it. 2 thumbs pointed at this guy. I told you Washington was going to do it, and they did it. As a starting quarterback, Alex Smith has compiled 8 winning seasons since 2011 when he went 13-3 in San Francisco. Revenge game. That stretch includes each of his 5 seasons as the starter in Kansas City. I am calling for the upset again. Washington's going to do it again. Is this really an upset, though? It's the San Francisco, Arizona XFL.
They're very even.
This is not this. I mean, the only way it's an upset is that it's against the Vegas spread. But I'm taking the Washington football team, and I feel comfortable about it. I mean, the XFLers finally showed what happens when you play with as many backups as the 49ers have had to do so far this season. And it's not that, I dislike the 49ers. It's just a talent thing. And the 49ers are at the end of their talent rope.
Yeah, and by the time that Garoppolo and Kittle can come back and lead them into the playoffs, I mean, right now they're down to 15% chance. It'll be over by that time. And I think this will be the dagger if Washington can get it done. They'll be out.
And I think Washington can. I think the Washington defense is strong enough to stop that rushing game. And I think Alex Smith is playing extremely well for throwing on actually last week it was like, which leg is the one that shouldn't be bleeding like that?
Yeah, really.
Right.
Hey guys, isn't this a feel-good story? A Daniel Snyder led public relations nightmare year long is a feel-good story. I'm really rooting for these guys, man.
You have a coach
about our Scottish friend.
You have a coach that's overcome cancer. You've got a quarterback that almost died and is back on the field with a rebuilt leg. Washington.
Nobody talks about. Yeah.
Yeah, and pretty much that coach and that quarterback is where my support for this team ends. Because, and that's more so a personal thing. Like, because cancer sucks. And with Alex Smith, basically, I mean, this is an injury worse than what Joe Theismann quote on Monday night from Lawrence Taylor, and that ended Theismann's career. So for Smith to come back and play, absolutely, I am happy for him. I am happy he's playing well. I wish it wasn't in this disgustingly pukish uniform that I have to look at from my hometown, because I despise this franchise with a burning passion of 1,000 white supernovas. But that's pretty much 2 feel-good stories. And, after that, this team can go burn in Hades.
Well, I'll give you one more, because there are 3 receivers this season with 7 games of 7+ receptions. Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins are 2 of them. The other one is Terry McLaurin. Yeah. Terry McLaurin doesn't get enough love. Because he's in Washington.
He gets quiet enough love. Every time I see a highlight of him, he's torching somebody who shouldn't be on him one-on-one.
You only notice because he's wearing that puke uniform that you mentioned.
Hey.
You're just jealous. By the way,
I'm not. You're right. I am jealous. I wish he was wearing a green uniform. I wish almost any wide receiver in the league that has more than 500 yards receiving was wearing a green uniform.
These 2 teams played last year. The 49ers only eked out a 9-0 victory in October of last season.
I expect something similar because, look, I know we've already ripped the Niners because they're at the end of the depth pool for their defense. They still play well. And I don't want to believe that the return of Richard Sherman made this defense worse. But after looking at last week's game against Buffalo, Josh Allen, we had dubbed a running quarterback who has the ability to throw occasionally. I believe he was something like 35 or 42.
It's like 80%.
At the beginning of the season, he was pretty much a running quarterback who had the ability to throw the ball because of what happened last year.
He changed his game. He's got finesse passes.
He changed his game, yes.
Yep.
But last week, he made all the throws.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all of them. He torched this secondary.
Cole Beasley looked like Jerry Rice against that secondary, man.
This is insane, and there's still guys available in the secondary who can still play. The only difference last week from the previous weeks, Richard Sherman was back. And it wasn't like they were going at Richard Sherman. It was torching the guys who had already been out there for weeks. linebackers didn't get proper depth in zone coverage. They couldn't cover any of the running backs in pass coverage. We were just touting Robert Saleh a couple of weeks ago as far as how great this unit was playing. And, yeah, he'll still get some consideration, but last week against Buffalo was just – that's not a good look for this defensive unit.
And by the way,
it's not.
James, let me crush you some more, James, as a fellow fan of a team that could use a wide receiver. How about Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel? Mm-hmm.
Deebo Samuel's on the injury report with a foot injury. He missed practice on Wednesday, but he is questionable.
I think one thing we forgot to mention is how impressive J.D. McKissick was and Peyton Barber. When Antonio Gibson was the stir in that stirs the drink in that offense.
It's true.
And he's doubtful. Obviously, he's out probably, but I don't think they lost anything on that side. And I think that Washington front four,
yes,
Sweat,
good.
Payne, Allen, Young, top 5 in the NFL right now. They're beating up center lines, and they're making a difference. And that's the difference in this game, I think, even though I'm really rooting for him. I'll just say that.
But you, Doc, and James have taken the Niners. I'm alone on the island with Washington again. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, just remember, 2 thumbs, this guy.
Yep.
Yeah, after Neil convinced you. The rest of the injury report, cornerbacks Kawan Williams and Emmanuel Mosley, ankle and hamstring, are on the injury report, along with guard Tom Compton. For Washington, Brandon Scherf, David Sharp, Morgan Moses, that's your guard, and both tackles. They're showing up as questionable. Terry McLaurin is questionable with an ankle injury. Tamarick Henningway, the backup tight end, was placed on injury reserve with a wrist injury. Antonio Gibson is doubtful and unlikely to play with a case of turf toe. And wide receiver Antonio Gandy Golden was placed on injury reserve with a hamstring. So some of those explosive players not going to be present for the offense. You said it was 9-0 last year between these two teams.
Yep.
If the Niners defense bounces back from last week, I expect, I'm not going to say a similar score, but pretty much a similar defensive battle.
A 1917 game or something stupid.
Try 12-6.
Wow. 12-6. My goodness.
6.
Especially if Terry McLaurin is not 100%. Well, he's not going to.
Well, he's been nursing that. He's got a hammy or something.
He's a speed guy.
Yeah.
Sunday Night Football. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Buffalo Bills. Steelers no longer undefeated. They are 2 in the power rankings. The Bills have moved back up to 4 in the power rankings. They are favored by 2.5. However, this is to note, the power rankings home field advantage does not give the Bills a lower ranking. So the power rankings will take the Pittsburgh Steelers in this particular game. Steelers lead the NFL with 44 sacks, have recorded at least 2 sacks in every game this season. Dating back to week 9 of the 2016 season, Pittsburgh has recorded a sack in 69 consecutive games, and that is tied for the longest such streak in NFL history. So they need a sack at Buffalo to surpass the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from 99 to 2003 to take that particular record, the most consecutive games with a sack in league history. TJ Watt recorded a sack and forced fumble last week, leads the NFL with 12 sacks this season with a sack on Sunday night. Watt, who had 14.5 sacks in 2019 and 13 sacks in 2018, will become the 6th player since 1990 with at least 13 sacks in 3 consecutive seasons. In Week 13, Bills quarterback Josh Allen threw for 375 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. He had a nice big fat 139.1 passer rating. It marked the 3rd time this season that Allen has thrown for at least 375 yards and 3 or more touchdowns with a rating of 130 or better. Only one other player in NFL history has had 3 such games in a season, and that was Drew Brees in 2013. Allen faces the league's number 2 defense against the pass, 199.8 yards allowed per game. Steelers defense also leads the NFL in points allowed per game, 17.6, 44 sacks, as I mentioned, and 16 interceptions. On third down, the Bills offense leads the NFL, having converted 68 of 138 attempts. That's 49.3%, again, for you math people. While the Steelers defense ranks 4th, having allowed 61 conversions on 169 attempts, 36.1%. All of that is saying, I don't know which way this game can go. I think it's going to be close, but I think that the way that the Steelers have shown a little bit of stumble, not only in their loss last week, but in their victory the previous game to that, I'm going to take...
Do it.
Oh.
Do it!
No, I'm going to take the Steelers, Doc. I don't think...
Yeah.
I think what happens here,
Allen
gets blinded by the bright lights of primetime. He just plays differently on primetime.
Didn't happen last
a lot of
time this week.
Wasn't the last game in prime time?
Yeah.
It just played on Monday night.
You look like a junior Ben Roethlisberger, man.
All right. Well, listen, that's one instance out of many.
Yep. True that.
We can all cherry pick the stats to go the way that we want them to, including
Hey, is John Brown coming back? What's his status? Apparently.
John Brown was placed on he was don't know. The last I have here is that on November 28th he was placed on injured reserve, designated to return with an ankle injury. Doesn't look like that's going to be anytime soon. He is still out. Also, wide receiver Isaiah Hodgins was placed on injured reserve yesterday. He's going to miss the remainder of the season having shoulder surgery. Andre Roberts is questionable with an Achilles injury, so they're going to need somebody out there besides Cole Beasley and Diggs.
Yeah, Gabriel Davis will do just fine there.
And they got grooving with the tight ends too. I think I'm going to tell you something right now. Even though TJ is having an MVP type year, 31% win rate as an edge rusher, but right behind him, unsung Jerry Hughes, the old man, Buffalo Bills, same 31% win rate. I think there's enough blemishes right now in the Steelers. This could be a little bit of the changing of the guard, and I'm hoping for it. I'm going to tell you why. I want Week 17 to matter. I want the Browns to be playing the Steelers for the division. Wouldn't that be funky last year? And isn't that exciting, guys? Saturday football. When it's Saturday NFL around Christmas season, it gets me in the Christmas spirit. That's what gets me. Not shopping, not sickening Christmas carols. It's when the NFL's on Saturday. It's just fantastic. Going shopping. Oh, got games today. Can't. Sorry. Yeah.
That's not until next week.
Yeah.
This game is on Monday. Sunday night.
Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday night. There we go.
Yeah, so my concern with the Steelers, and it showed up last week, is the depth of the linebackers. And I don't know who's left on the practice squad that they can elevate, but they better find somebody who can cover running backs in coverage, because when Robert Spillane went down, Antonio Gibson of Washington torched his replacement in pass coverage. And my thing is, why do you have a guy out there who can't run with anybody except to pretty much go up the middle? Because this is a big hulking dude, number 98. I can't remember what his name was. But he wasn't within 5 yards of Gibson in any pass play that Gibson went out for. And that was pretty much one entire drive that they just passed it to Gibson out of the backfield. I don't even know what their combination routes were for the wide receivers, but it was
Gibson got hurt.
Excuse me. Yeah, McKissick, sorry. But yeah, it was just wide receivers go deep. McKissick, you're going to run up the center, and then you're going to do an out. And don't worry about the linebacker because he won't be there. And he wasn't. He ran after him, but this guy was lumbering. It might as well have been a defensive tackle trying to chase Usain Bolt, because that was the disparity in speed between the two. So Spillane is doubtful this week.
You guys have
Spillane
convinced
is doubtful
me.
with a knee injury, so I'm concerned.
With you, Doc.
Spillane is a mountain, dude. I'm telling you, I have this feeling about, because listen, if you watch the first half of that game, Pittsburgh is a little worried about their offensive line. two-step drops. He's throwing the ball within 2 seconds. And I think that there's enough personnel in the back end of the Bills can take that away. Combine that with the pass rush. They usually get their groove on around second quarter because they got torched in the first drive and a half against San Francisco. I think there's some movement right now. I think the Bills have the weapons. They have the overall talent on defense. I think overall right now, including the current Steeler injuries, I think they're a better team than the Steelers. I'm going with the Bills.
Yep, I'm with you. I changed my pick. I'm back on the Bills. I mean, I'd like to see the Bills lose. It would certainly help my team out a little bit.
Yeah.
But, and this is where coaching comes in, and I believe in Mike Tomlin. He will fix this front seven. I should also mention for the Bills' final injuries, Quentin Jefferson, the defensive tackle, was limited with a hip issue. Safety Jaquan Johnson, he did not practice due to an ankle injury. For Pittsburgh, Ulysses Gilbert, linebacker, injury reserve because of a back injury. He's designated to return. Chris Boswell has a hip injury. He didn't practice. That's the kicker, key component of their scoring there. Chris Wormley, the nose tackle, is questionable. Joe Hayden is in concussion protocol.
That's huge because nobody's been able to cover Diggs or Beasley. I think that's huge. And I also think, what was I just going to say before my sometimer's disease came in here? Steelers, 36 points in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
And a good Bills defense that's going to put up, I don't care how good that defense is. I think that they're good for at least 24 points. That's why I think the Bills are going to win.
All right, the final game on the docket, Monday Night Football. It is the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. Another potential AFC playoff preview. The Browns 6th in the power rankings. They move up into the top 10. The Ravens move a little bit up too. They're up to 12, and they are favored by 1 point by Vegas. That is definitely curious, isn't it? I mean, I really don't know. I've already mentioned it before. The Browns are that team that as soon as you start believing in them, they rip your heart out. They stomp on it. Yep. They spit on it. They just do whatever they can to it. I think I had a moment earlier this season where I went all in on the Browns, and then they did it to me. And now they're back in this spot where they're looking really good. They're 9-3. They seem to think I've gotten things in order. Baker Mayfield is still got a little bit of swag to him, but he does seem to be catching a little bit of humbleness, maybe just a tiny bit.
Yeah,
just a smidge.
And you know what, Pod? I think the great thing is it was only really one good half against Tennessee, but they caught Tennessee with the wind at their backs. Right? Remember we were talking? Oh, here comes Tennessee. Got the run game ready for the playoffs. Cold weather climates. Going to run this out. Going to be able to compete with the Chiefs. Going to be the rhetoric that was going on. They had the wind at their backs, and they got freaking torched because everything, all cylinders were firing for at least a full half. The talent is there, but do they have the brain space?
The Ravens have won 3 of the past 4, including in September, the absolute destruction of the Browns, 38-6. And I know that's something that weighs heavily on these Browns' minds because Baker Mayfield brought it up in his post-game press conference.
I love that.
They are, I mean, whether they're using that loss to fuel them or what have you, I think let's put it this way. It's going to be a game. And I think it could go either way. Okay. I still just don't. I can't pull the trigger. I want to pull
enough on the resume.
I can't pull the trigger.
On the resume. Yeah.
James, what do you think?
I'm thinking that they're feeling themselves after beating Tennessee last week. And look, I've had discussions about this game and the turning point of this game. And yes, they did come out firing. They took advantage of a defense that was expecting them to run, and they torched them with play action, right? And I mean, absolutely torched because Baker Mayfield was hitting guys wide open in zone coverage and man-to-man, and there wasn't a defender within, 10 yards of these guys when they caught the football. Because because they were all packed in expecting run. They were expecting Hunt. They were expecting Chubb. And they didn't get that in the first half, at least not a large dose of it like we thought they would. And so, they quickly went up. For me, the turning point of the game was 17-7. The Titans are in the red zone, and Derrick Henry fumbles the ball. And from that point forward, like Doc said, for the rest of the first half, the Browns were pretty much just untouchable. They got what they wanted, when they wanted, how they wanted it. They could do no wrong in the first half. In the second half, it was like they were sleepwalking because they had this big lead. And Tennessee had their opportunities to come back and win that game and take it from them. But they still eked out the win. I think that whatever they were feeling in that first half, they're probably still feeling for this week. Yes, they did get blasted by the Ravens the first time around. But the Ravens are now starting to get everybody who was placed on that COVID list a couple of weeks ago for their initial meeting with the Steelers for Thanksgiving. All of those guys are now coming back, and the last of them who were on that list come off that list this week.
Yep.
And so, so whatever full strength is for them at this point, because they were missing a couple of guys against Dallas, minus the wide receiver who got pulled just before the game started. Minus him, Dez Bryant. Minus Dez Bryant because, unless somebody pulls him aside and talks to him at the facility or calls him at home to say, hey, guy, get your butt back in here. We need you. He's not playing for the rest of the year, and understandable as far as why, because of how that played out on Tuesday night. But, yeah, I can't call it. It should be a close game. It really should be a close game and a nail biter to the final seconds. I don't know what to expect from Cleveland. I do know Myles Garrett still isn't playing, even though he's off the COVID list. So he's not on the injury report in any way, shape, or form. So whether he suits up on Sunday, I don't know. Cordero Hodge
last week.
Was he?
Yeah,
because I don't recall seeing him in uniform last week. I must have missed that.
He had a sack. There you go.
Well, I definitely missed that. Players for the Browns who are on the injury report: Cordero Hodge, the wide receiver, has a hamstring injury. Denzel Ward, their corner, calf injury. Tawan Taylor, the wide receiver, was placed on injury reserve. Tedrick Thompson, the safety, is questionable. Wyatt Teller, their guard, is out. He's been placed on the reserve COVID list. And Marvin Hall, their wide receiver, also on the COVID list. For Baltimore, Dez Bryant, obviously, out. Willie Snead is to be activated from the COVID list along with Mark Andrews, the tight end.
Mark Andrews, that's the big one.
So, yeah, both of those are designated to return from the
And who's the one D lineman or the one pass rusher coming back? I forget. His name escapes me. Come back from
Williams?
Nope. Just off the COVID list.
Calais Campbell?
No.
Because he played.
Just a couple days ago, he just got off the COVID list. He's coming back with Andrews. Who's their other linebacking pass rusher?
Judon.
Yeah, Marshall Judon. Yep.
Matthew
Judon. Yep.
Yeah, he's back as well. He's coming off the list, so he'll be available.
This is the first time they're going to play normal in a long time. So with full practice, so it's going to be a great game. It should be a great game.
I'm going to take the Ravens. I would not be surprised if the Browns win, but I'll take the Ravens.
I agree.
Yeah. Taking the Ravens as well. The Ravens injury list as far as this week, Tramon Williams and Jimmy Smith, the corners, are both listed as questionable, along with defense tackle Broderick Washington. And, of course, we mentioned all the other players who are coming back from COVID reserve. Again, Dez's situation, up in the air. He claims that he's going to stay home for the remainder of the season. So,
yeah.
All right.
Not that they actually need him.
By the way, more breaking news: Julio Jones did not practice today. So
no, he's got that. He'll play limited plays and have an effect, but he's got a lingering hammy.
Mm-hmm.
I got a cramp in my hind leg.
Right. Julio Jones is always a non-participant in practice, but fully suited on Sunday.
Yeah.
By the way, I suspect that Neil was not here with us this week because he was too embarrassed that he didn't take his own team, and that upset Special. No, it took me, this guy, 2 thumbs.
No.
This guy.
It was Neil who convinced you to take that.
Oh, no. But
Last-
he didn't take Washington himself. He may have convinced me, but he didn't take him themselves. I get all the credit right here. Boom. Name on the title of the podcast. Pod Vader.
By the way, Pod Vader, last headline, and then I'm going to go make some banana bread. Marshawn Lynch, I'd unretire for a contender. Teams have shown interest. Drop the mic. Who gives a flying fadoo? I'm going to make banana bread. Gentlemen, have a delicious football week.
Doc, thanks once again for joining us on this podcast. We'll make sure that all of his recipes are available for you at our website.
Thanks for the therapy, brothers. Thank you for the therapy.
Facebook.com/NFU podcast as well. You can reach us at NFU podcast on Twitter. Nextfanup@gmail.com if you prefer to talk to us via email because you need more characters. That's the way to do it. So for Doc, for James, not for Neil, specifically because he's not here. There you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together. And through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.